Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yenam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamstra Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kupa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. So, welcome to our continued study of Bhagavad Gita. So today we'll be discussing chapter 4. So as we've been discussing this yoga ladder, we've been talking about how knowledge is the determinant of how one progresses to the higher rungs of the yoga ladder, purification of material desires and our knowledge. And so today we're going to be discussing this topic of transcendental knowledge. So in chapter 3, we talked about two paths to self-realization, the active path and the inactive path, the Sankhya Yoga and the Buddha Yoga. And Krishna spoke about how the active path is far, far superior to the inactive path because it aligns with the nature of the soul, which is to be active, and the process itself is more enjoyable, and we get the mercy of Krishna along the way. And so it is better to detach from matter by attaching to spirit, rather than simply trying to detach from matter and end up in this kind of limbo position where one is not yet attached to spirit. So we talked about the need to work in a detached manner, which purifies one's consciousness, purifies one's of their material desires, so that transcendental knowledge can be acquired. And we can say that as one works in a detached manner, one acquires transcendental knowledge, and that leads one to this purification. So the self-realization is the key, and we need knowledge to become learned. And Krishna, particularly in the second half of chapter 3, was speaking about the importance of knowledge. And as we discussed already, the amount of knowledge, defines where we are. In Karma Kanda, one only knows that there's a higher power in order to get one's sense gratification. But still one has some knowledge of a higher power. And in Karma Yoga, one knows that there is a higher being, and then there's a better goal. There's a transcendental goal than just trying to enjoy one's senses. So one is acquiring a little bit more knowledge. In Jnana Yoga, one has knowledge of the distinction between spirit and matter, but no yet real conception of the Supreme Lord beyond the impersonal feature. And in Bhakti, one has full knowledge of Krishna. And thus one's activities are guided by this knowledge. So we said knowledge is the key. Because if one knows who is the doer, one knows about Krishna, then it is very easy to detach, to work in a detached manner. But if not, we attach to the fruits thinking we are the doer, and thus we suffer. And we learn at the end of the third chapter that lust is this all-devouring enemy because it destroys our knowledge. And when our knowledge is destroyed, then we don't know how to discriminate our actions from right and wrong. So thus lust covers our knowledge, and we engaged in attached activity, and thus one ends up in a very dangerous situation. So this is why lust is a very dangerous situation, because it covers our knowledge. So what is this transcendental knowledge that we are seeking through detached action? This is now what's going to be discussed in chapter 4. Krishna is going to speak for the first time about himself. Who is he? And our position in relationship to Krishna. So this knowledge then can help us move, ultimately up to the platform of devotional service. And when we say transcendental knowledge, it defines or refers to knowledge that transcends matter. So beyond birth, death, old age, and disease, right? Beyond the platform of the body. There is so much knowledge out there. Knowledge in universities. Knowledge about so many different topics. Just go to a library. How many varieties of books do we find? But this knowledge is related to the eternal knowledge of the soul. So it is transcendental, meaning it transcends matter. So this is the special position of this knowledge that Krishna is now going to speak about and glorify. Okay? So let us now begin in chapter 4. So the first 4 verses of chapter 4 discuss how transcendental knowledge is to be received, and then Krishna will begin to explain what is transcendental knowledge, that is knowledge of Krishna. That is the topic of transcendental knowledge. So in the first verse, Krishna says, the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivasvan. And Vivasvan instructed it to Manu, and the father of mankind. And Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. So the main point of this verse is, this is not the first time we are hearing the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is not 5,000 years old. Srila Prabhupada does some mathematics and suggests it's at least 120 million years old. And the point of the matter from this realization is that this science of how to find peace and happiness is an eternal science. Why? Because the soul has only one eternal occupation and only one eternal relationship. It doesn't change. Customs may change, technology may change, climates may change, but the relationship with the Supreme doesn't change. And thus this knowledge is still the most relevant information. So Krishna is explaining that this information is very ancient, and it is being respoken to Arjuna. This is not the first time. And Prabhupada talks about in the purports that the kings should understand this knowledge, because the duty of the king is to facilitate the purpose of human life. The only purpose of human life, to use this precious rare gift, is to self-realize, is to cultivate spiritual knowledge of our relationship with Krishna, and then begin to act in that relationship. So the kings, their only objective, their goal in governing, was to facilitate the self-realization of all the citizens. There is no other goal. And that is the definition of a great king, a great ruler. Do we have such rulers today? No, unfortunately not. But this is the only objective of the great kings, is to facilitate because the goal of the king, like the goal of a father, is to see for the welfare of their children. So the goal of the king is to see the welfare of their citizens, and the welfare of their citizens is not by gross domestic product increases, per capita income increases, better healthcare systems, better education systems, better food. None of that will create real success. So this is the objective. And thus Srila Prabhupada says that this knowledge must be accepted through disciplic succession. And this Gita is spoken by Krishna himself. And thus it is infallible aparisya. It is perfect knowledge. Right? So this is what the kings were meant to understand. So now we'll hear about the kings in verse 2. This supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in the course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. So now Krishna says how this knowledge is received. It is received via disciplic succession. And sometimes the chain is broken, or the word uses scattered, nashta. And when that chain is broken, the knowledge will become reestablished, and that Krishna will discuss here in a few verses. So this knowledge, the only way to receive it is through guru disciplic succession. You know, it is descending knowledge. It is not ascending. And thus we need the mercy of Guru, who is bringing the mercy of Krishna. So by the mercy of Krishna, one gets Guru, and by the mercy of Guru, one gets Krishna. And this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taught us. So this is how this knowledge is to be received. And the only way to know about these transcendental matters, you know, when you want to study physics, you can do some experimentation. It is a gross subject matter. But the science of the soul is very subtle. You cannot do testing and see even the soul. You can perceive its presence, but it is a very subtle topic. So theorizing and trying to do direct sense perception doesn't work. So the only way we know is to hear from the authority. And ultimately, through parampara, we are hearing from the ultimate authority, that is Krishna. So parampara gives the process by which this knowledge, coming directly from Krishna, can enter our heart. And thus Srila Prabhupada used the term that, you know, the role of the guru is the transparent via medium. The guru inserts a transparent via medium, like a pipe, into our heart. And, you know, as a pipe, we know it is connected to some source, like a hose pipe is connected to a source of water. So what is on the other end of this pipe? One end is our heart, the other end is Krishna. So Guru establishes a direct connection to Krishna. But the Guru is not speaking into the pipe. The Guru is not filling the pipe. The Guru is facilitating the connection of the pipe. Right? Put another way, Prabhupada said the Guru is the postman, delivering the message of God. But it is a transparent via medium, meaning the message is coming from Krishna. So this is the process of disciplic succession. And one must hear from the bona fide parampara. If not, there is no value. If you are on one end of the pipe and it is not connected to the hose spigot, there's no value of that pipe. No water will come. Similarly, if that transparent via medium is not coming directly from Krishna, then there is no value. So this knowledge, it must come from there. And Krishna now is speaking this Bhagavad Gita again because the chain has become scattered. It is broken. And so he's coming to re-establish this parampara. And how do we know? Prabhupada discusses when the chain is broken, because the knowledge is being used to propagate some selfish desires, and the original purport is lost. And Srila Prabhupada says in the purport here that as soon as the original purpose was scattered by the motive of unscrupulous commentators, there arose the need to reestablish the disciplic succession. Okay? So this is what is happening now. And so Krishna now is going to give the qualification to receive this knowledge. In the third verse, that very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you because you are my devotee and or as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. So the qualification to receive this knowledge, why was Arjuna being told? Because he was a devotee and friend of Krishna. Only a devotee can understand Krishna. Again, this science of the relationship with the Supreme is what Krishna is saying here. This topic is about the relationship, right? So one must be friendly to the Supreme Lord. The demons who try to understand cannot, because they have a unfriendly relationship. So they will never understand this transcendental science. They'll get it all wrong. And Prabhupada uses the analogy of licking the outside of a bottle of honey. You know? Unless you approach this Gita in the spirit of devotion, you'll not be able to taste the nectar of the Bhagavad Gita, just as much as one cannot taste the honey by licking the outside of the bottle. So one must be friendly. Right? And what is covering our relationship with Krishna? If this ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is the key. What is covering our relationship with Krishna? It is Maya. And this is the secret that is revealed when we practice bhakti. Right? That we say that this, is confidential. It's a transcendental mystery. Well, the deep personal relationship we have with a loved one is confidential, right? One doesn't broadcast it so much. So this relationship that we have with Krishna, it is covered by Maya. So how to uncover it is the process of devotional service. So becoming very close to Krishna is very, very important. And when we become close to somebody, very tight, actually not much has to be said to make a very deep impact, right? Two persons, they know each other so well, and the hearts are almost one. We can almost know what the other is thinking, right? That relationship is like that. So when we become like this with Krishna, then this knowledge actually goes very deep into the heart. The realizations become very profound and deep, just as the knowledge between two people who know each other very well it's not superficial. Oh, I know the person's birthday. No, one knows the inner desires of that person. And we were discussing on Thursday how, the pure devotee of the Lord, they know the inner desires of Krishna because they have come so close to him. So like this, the depth of our connection with the Supreme Lord will increase this knowledge of Krishna, knowledge of this relationship. And we see this between the heart of the disciple and Guru. The heart of the knowledge of the disciple and the Guru is one in purpose. And then this real confidential knowledge is transmitted. Okay? So, and what does it mean to be one again? We should make sure we've not, mistake this for any kind of, Mayavad philosophy. One means one in desire. When there's only one goal, and that is to please Krishna. There's no independent desires. And so this is the idea. And why is this relationship needed? Why must one be friendly? Because again, this information is confidential. Right? We don't share this with our enemies. We don't share our inner secrets with those who are envious of us. So Krishna is prepared to share this knowledge with Arjuna because he is his friend. So now this is what we understand here. And the process of becoming the friend, of course, is through the process of devotional service. And if one does not surrender to Krishna, this Gita will never be understood. One must give up the desire for independence and surrender to Guru and Krishna. Then this knowledge can be acquired. Okay? So now Arjuna is going to ask an important question. Arjuna said, the god Vivasvan is senior by birth to you. How am I to understand that in the beginning you instructed this science to him? So Prabhupada speaks in the purport, in our Acharya's comment, on why Arjuna has asked this question. So Arjuna has asked this question for three reasons. One, he wants to challenge the atheists who think Krishna is an ordinary human, having been born from the womb of Devaki. How he could have spoken this knowledge millions of years ago. So he wants to challenge this idea that he is, like one of us. Two, he's given a chance for all of us to learn about Krishna directly from Krishna himself. Demons want to comment on their own beliefs of who is Krishna, but Arjuna wants us to hear directly from the source. Thankfully, Arjuna has asked this question. And the third reason, Arjuna wanted Krishna to speak about himself for the benefit of all of us, of course, hearing from the source. But Krishna was not going to, show off his position unless he was asked to do so. So Arjuna finds it so sweet to hear about the glories of the Lord, and so he asks. Just like later in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is going to ask to hear about the opulences of Krishna. Krishna is not just going to say, oh, let me tell you how great I am. But the devotee relishes hearing the greatness of Krishna. So Arjuna is asking. So Arjuna has asked for these three reasons. To challenge the atheists, to give us a chance to hear from the source about Krishna, and to ask Krishna to speak directly about himself. Okay? So now what is this knowledge? Okay? So Krishna speaks now in the 5th verse in response to Arjuna's question. The personality of Godhead said, many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember them all, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy. So we see Arjuna is being referred to here as Parantapa. So very importantly, Krishna now is beginning to reveal transcendental knowledge about himself. Okay? So how can Krishna remember all his previous appearances but not Arjuna? Both are eternal. Spirit souls are eternal. But there is a difference. Right? So Krishna immediately is lining up that there is a difference between him and all of us. Though Arjuna is very powerful, he is the subduer of the enemy, Parantapa, there is a difference. So now we get to understand the first important aspect of Krishna, that Krishna is Advaita and Achyuta, and we are not. Krishna's body does not change. He is eternal. His form is spiritual, and thus he is Advaita. There is no distinction between him and his form. And second, he is infallible. He is Achyuta. He is perfect. So he never forgets anything. Right? Arjuna and all of us, we change bodies. And this changing of the body bewilders the soul and it becomes forgetful. Right? We forget our past lives because we are not our bodies. We are distinct from our bodies as spirit soul, as Krishna has explained so much in the 2nd chapter. But Krishna and his form are one and the same. They are both spirit. There is no difference. Right? So Krishna allows us actually to forget our past so that we don't become haunted by our past lives. But Krishna has perfect knowledge. So the living entity, due to the change of the body, forgets. But Krishna, again, is his body. There is no change of the body. And thus he is again Advaita. So he has supreme consciousness. We have limited consciousness. And Prabhupada gives the example how limited our consciousness is. We cannot even remember what we are doing exactly 24 hours ago at 8:59 a.m. Eastern Time Everybody know where they were, what they were doing, what they were thinking? Not even one day ago do we remember. But Krishna is remembering millions of years ago how he spoke this knowledge to Vivaswan. Right? So this is the important distinction between us and Krishna. And the main point here is that no one can equal Krishna. No matter how great we may be materially, we are tiny compared to Krishna. Even the great subduer of the enemy, Arjuna. Even the liberated souls like Arjuna, who are in constant association with Krishna, they are subordinate part and parcels. And that point Srila Prabhupada makes in the purport by saying that the difference between Arjuna, although Arjuna is addressed as a mighty hero who could subdue the enemies, he is unable to recall. Okay? So this is the first piece of knowledge about Krishna, that his form and him are one, which is polar opposite of us. We are not our body. We are distinct from our body, which is made up of matter in our conditioned state. So this is the first aspect of knowledge Krishna is revealing. And now he'll continue to talk about his form. Although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. I mean, could it be any more clear? Who is Krishna? So clear. When we see him, or hear about his activities in the material world, he is in his original transcendental form. Yet, the atheists cannot understand this very simple topic. So 3 things here. Krishna is 1, unborn. Wait a minute. I thought he was born in the prison house of Kamsa. He is unborn. His body never deteriorates. 2. And 3, though he appears to be born from his parents, he is actually arriving in his original form, as we see in this illustration to the right. Okay? So let us do a comparison and contrasting to our position. Did any of us pick our parents? Did any of us get to pick our time of birth? Our place of birth? No. But Krishna controls his appearance fully. To whom he appears, where he appears, and when. So he picks. It comes at his choosing. He descends by his causeless mercy to fulfill his own desires and to uplift others. So Krishna is not born, he appears. There is no creation of this body. It is always present. Right? He is eternally present. And Prabhupada gives the example of the sun. When the sun rises in the eastern horizon, the sun is not born or all of a sudden it turns on. No, it is just appearing in our sight. And at the end of the day, it will disappear from our vision. But the sun is still shining. So similarly, Krishna appears in this world and he disappears in this world. But he is not born nor does he die. He simply goes to another place. So it was in our vision for some time and then will disappear. So this is the understanding that he is not born, but he appears. And he appears in his original body. He does not take a new body. As we mentioned already, his form and him are one. Right? We change the bodies. A fish, a tree, a bird, human. But Krishna is always Krishna. He may change his form from time to time as he appears as like Matsya or Kurma or different forms. But this is his form. And Krishna chooses his appearance, time, place, and to whom. Right? But we said we did not get to choose. How is our birth determined? One is forced to accept a particular body that is made by matter based on the laws of karma. According to the laws of karma, it is fixed which body we'll get. Because our body is matter. But Krishna does not have such a thing. Krishna's body does not deteriorate. What does that mean? He doesn't age. As we see when he showed his original form in the prison house of Kamsa, he showed his four-armed form. And then he assumed the form of a baby. But as a baby, then he grew up to 2 years old, and then 3 years old, and then 4. How is he aging? He was aging by his only will. He decided, today I'd like to grow a little bit. And then tomorrow I want to grow a little bit more, and a little bit more. And thus he was changing his appearance. Why? To give pleasure to his devotees in new ways. Mother Yashoda and Nanda Baba, just like any natural parent, they enjoy seeing their child grow up and do and learn new and different activities. So to give that pleasure to his devotees, Krishna changes his form. But he is not being aged by the force of time. Our body ages, but do we get to choose, okay, today I'd like to be the same age as yesterday? We wish. We buy all kinds of anti-wrinkle creams and hair ointments and dye trying to stop aging, the force of time. But anybody can stop the force of time? No. But when Krishna transforms from boyhood to youth, that is due by his own sweet will. He is not being pushed by the force of time to age. It is simply his desire to show a slightly more mature form. But then, at the time of this discussion, he was 125 roughly years old. Yet he looks as though he was 20 or 25, as Prabhupada says. So, we don't see pictures of Krishna being old, gray-haired. Arjuna, now you surrender to... No. He is always youthful and vibrant, because his body does not deteriorate. At just a few days old, he was able to kill the giant demon Putana. He didn't have to grow up to become strong. He's always potent, at birth or at 125 years old. How strong are we at 1 day old? Not very strong. How strong is the man or woman at 125 years old? Not very strong, right? So this is the stark contrast between us and Krishna. So Krishna is establishing, these important distinctions to help us understand that he is the supreme personality and the source of everything we are, and thus that should inspire us to surrender to him. Prabhupada talks about Krishna not being under the control of material nature. Right? He is the creator of the modes of material nature. But when he descends into this world, he does not become subject to them like we are. And the example is given of the king. When he enters his prison house that he has created in his kingdom, the king does not become subject to the laws of the prison. He is the creator of the prison. So though he may be inside the prison, seeing what's going on, he does not become subject to those laws. He is free to leave whenever he wants. So similarly, when Krishna descends to the material world, he is not subject to those laws that he himself is the ruler of, the creator of. So we are forced to age by the control of time. We are forced into a particular body by the laws of karma. But Krishna comes and goes as he pleases, as he wishes. No other imposition on him. He is truly the independent doer. So then when does he appear? Why does he come? So Krishna says in 7 and in 8, he'll explain further. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. So whenever there is a decline in religion and a rise of irreligion, decline of religion occurs when humans try to create their own religious principles. Only God can create the rules of creation. Because he is the creator. Who else has authority to say how we should live within this material world? Man-made laws, that's why they're always being changed, and they're always fallible. Because how one who is subject to this creation can try to speak about the laws of this world? Only Krishna can. And so Krishna says here, and Prabhupada talks about this Srijamyaham. He says, I descend myself. He is there, again, not created. He descends. He arrives into this. Just as much as if you were to board an airplane, though we cannot do that today, but if you were to board an airplane and you fly to, Hawaii, and you exit the airplane, you don't say you were born from the plane. You just came out of the plane and arrived in Hawaii. Right? Like that, Krishna arrives, he descends himself from one location to another. And so the avatars, the appearances of the Lord, they are given in Shastra. The fools claim, oh, I am an incarnation, I am God. There is no basis. It is prescribed in Shastra exactly when Krishna will appear. Though he can appear whenever he wants, he appears on a schedule. In the 28th cycle of the 7th Manu, at the end of Dwapar Yuga, he appears as Krishna. And immediately following that appearance, he comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That is given in Shastra. And so, we must understand that all avatars must be known by Shastra. And what is the mission of all avatars? Prabhupada explains towards the end of the purport in 7. The goal is one, to advance all souls towards surrendering to Krishna, to awaken this Krishna consciousness. There are different times and circumstances, so he comes in different forms, and different amounts of knowledge is given based on the time, place, and circumstance. But the goal is the same, to awaken spiritual life, to advance one in Krishna consciousness. That is it. And Prabhupada talks about the appearance of Lord Buddha, who came and he had to try to advance the knowledge by discrediting the Vedas. Why? Because people were so fallen in that time and place that the circumstance required that in order to get them to stop slaughtering animals and misusing the Vedas, he had to discredit them. But that was relevant to the time. That was advancing them ultimately to Krishna consciousness. Though on the surface it looks like he was, throwing out the Vedas, which he is the source of. But it was to elevate those people to at least a better position of neutrality, of not killing the animals through the misinterpretation of the Vedas. Right? So this we see in the appearance of Lord Buddha. But again, the purpose of all the avatars is one. Now, Krishna says the 3 reasons, very famous verse, to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to reestablish the principles of religion, I myself appear millennium after millennium. So Krishna says to deliver the pious, to destroy the sinful or the miscreants, and to reestablish Dharma. But does Krishna have to come to destroy the demons? With just a wink of an eye, the entire universes are destroyed, with millions of planets. So one demon within one of these planets needs Krishna to come to destroy them? He could just, with his own desire, send one lightning bolt, and boom, gone. Or one heart attack. So our acharyas comment that the primary and confidential reason he comes is simply to enjoy with his devotees. Krishna comes for the purpose of mitigating the anxieties of the pure devotees who are very anxious to see him in his original Vrindavan pastimes. That is what Srila Prabhupada is writing here in the purport. Right? And what is so special about these Vrindavan pastimes in the material world? Though that Vrindavan is certainly as fully spiritual, but within this earthly planet, well, in this planet, they get to enjoy Janmashtami. In Golok Vrindavan, Krishna is always there. There is no appearance. There is no Nandotsav festival. Right? There are no demons to slay. So they get to enjoy. Why do they enjoy seeing the slaying of the demons? Because it intensifies their love and dependence on Krishna. Krishna, save us from, Agasura and this demon and that, or even the reigns of Indra. There's no disruption, but those pastimes just intensify the love. So the pure devotees are anxious to see these activities, so Krishna performs them. And by performing them, he also inspires all of us as the conditioned souls who can observe these activities and say, wow, this is the sweet enjoyment one has in Goloka Vrindavan? Okay, let me aspire to that opportunity. So these pastimes are performed for the pleasure of his devotees and to inspire all of us to have some understanding of the deep relationship. Right? So, and he also comes, as we know, to specifically relieve certain demons. He fought with Jai and Vijay, and there's 6 different forms as demons, for their pleasure. They wanted to appear as demons to give Krishna the pleasure of fighting those demons. On the external surface we see, no, they chose because they were given the curse to either appear 3 times as demon or 7 times as devotees. Okay, 3 is less than 7, let me appear 3 times. But their deeper meaning was, Krishna doesn't get to enjoy this specific rasa of fighting. So we'll appear as demons to give Krishna this pleasure. Thus, always trying to please Krishna. So Krishna comes for specific reasons as well. So the 3 reasons, try to again say, because only Krishna can give this pure devotional service to personally kill some of these demons and to ease the pain of separation of his devotees. Right? And then we have to distinguish the avatar and the avatari. So Krishna is avatari, which means he is the source of all avatars. When he comes, he is not an incarnation. That is Krishna himself coming. And we see, this Ramadi Murti verse from Brahma Samhita, that there are many, many, many millions of incarnations. As many waves as there are in an ocean, there are incarnations. Like Rama, Vamana, Matsya, Varaha, Nrsimha. These are all incarnations. But there is one source, and that is Krishna. So we must understand that, and that's why Lord Brahma says in the opening verse, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigra Anadir Adir, the source of all sources is Krishna. And there are different types of avatars. As we know, there are the Purusha avatars, the Guna avatars, Lila avatars, Manavanta avatars, Yuga avatars, Shaktavesh avatars, 6 primary categories of avatars. And within there are millions and millions of different avatars. We only know a sampling of them. Okay? So now what is the result of this knowledge? Krishna has spoken about himself. He has given us knowledge. And what results? Goloka Vrindavan results. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So the benefit of knowing all of this about Krishna is, one, achieves Krishna's eternal abode. And what do we need to know? 2 things. The nature of his appearance and his activities. This is the summation of transcendental knowledge. With just these two pieces of information, one can achieve complete perfection. Liberation from the modes. It can be had quite simply. The jnanis and yogis, they're endeavoring for many, many lifetimes and millions of years on this progressive journey. But at the end, they might get impersonal liberation. But they'll eventually have to return back to this material world. But for one who knows just these two things, his appearance and his activities, eternal residence in the spiritual world, and the opportunity to render unlimited devotional service for the pleasure of Krishna. Seems almost too simple. But these two pieces of information lead to a profound realization for all of us. If you know about Krishna's appearance, you know him then to be the eternal supreme God and the controller who comes to help all of us. We've just discussed how his appearance is so different from us. It means he is supreme, far beyond whatever limited ability we have. And his appearance is for the purpose of inspiring us to surrender to him. And if we know about his activities, oh Krishna, then we really understand what love is. We see how much love he has for his devotees, how in every action he is giving unlimited pleasure. We see how much the residents of Vrindavan are immersed in pleasure and happiness. Aren't we all looking for happiness? We think we'll get it by more wealth, by more fame, more power, trying to manipulate matter in some new and unique way. But it's always ending in misery. But the residents of Vrindavan are just in bliss, seeing the activities of Krishna. So that is why he comes. He shows these activities to us. And thus we may become inspired to have that same opportunity. So, to get liberation, one must accept that Krishna is the transcendental personality. There's no other way. So, this is the powerful result of having this knowledge. So, just to summarize, he appears when he wants to, where he wants to, and to whom he wants to. None of us have that option. His form is non-different from him himself. There's no creation of his body. Our body is matter. His body, his form, is spirit. Sat, Chit, and Ananda. And he is not subjected to the modes of nature, birth, death, old age, disease, and he appears like the sun, is always present. So this knowledge of that will lead one to devotional service and thus return home back to Godhead. And so that is the summary of this knowledge. Now, how to get this love for Krishna? How to acquire this love? He speaks now in the next verse. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me, and taking refuge in me, many, many persons in the past have become purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. So Krishna is saying here, this is the proven path. Right? We want the proven path. Why one wants to go to, Harvard or IIT University? Because others previously have gone through and have come out the other side and have acquired great, great jobs and thus great, great wealth. And so it inspires us. There's a track record. Well, Krishna is saying that this knowledge of him has a great track record. And they achieve the highest of what one can achieve, and that is love for Krishna. Krishna Prema. There is no other greater achievement than Krishna Prema. So this is the proven path. And so what happens? One must become free from attachment, fear, and anger. When one is fully absorbed in Krishna, taking refuge of him, then one is purified of knowledge of Him. Right? And when we have knowledge of Him, then we really understand His sweetness, and we obtain love. You know? When you acquire knowledge of, let's say money, and you acquire knowledge about the power of money, we begin to love money, in a very mundane example. So having knowledge of Krishna is what will lead to our love for Krishna. We can't just say love God. We have to know who is God. What is He like? What does He do? What is His position? Then love can manifest. Right? So now how this love will manifest, how the knowledge will come. Well, step one must be free from attachment. Right? This Nishkam Karma Yoga. Because attachment takes one down to the path of material sense gratification and away from Krishna. And that material attachment leads to fear and anger. Right? Why? Because when we are materially attached, we become fearful of losing that which you are attached to. If I'm attached to my family, my wealth, my fame, my beauty, whatever it is, I know it's temporary. And so I have fear of losing it. Right? And anger, because no matter how much of it I get, I'm never satisfied. I'm always angry. Right? So the materialists are always in this difficult position. But the devotee has no fear, because he's confident that that which he values is eternal. And that is his relationship with Krishna. Nothing can take that away. Okay? So Prabhupada goes into a very elaborate discussion about the three types of gross materialists. The three types in summary are basically one who has no time for spirituality because they are so engrossed in their material affairs. Or two, they can't accept that Krishna is a person due to their ego thinking that no one can be greater than themselves. If I perish and I die, then God must also die. They cannot, they see Krishna lifting Govardhan hill. Oh, that's just stories. He can't lift a mountain. I can't do it. Then how could Krishna do it? Right? So that is the second type. And the third type is that they just think that the Lord is some sort of, gigantic energy, some impersonal manifestation. So those things lead to this material attachment. So step 2 then of this verse is when one's free from the material attachments, then one can be absorbed in Krishna. Either we're going to be absorbed in matter or we're going to be absorbed in Krishna. When one is free from attachment, then one is absorbed in the Supreme Lord and one takes his shelter. And we can only be absorbed in Him when we have knowledge of Him. Right? You can't absorb yourself in something you don't know. You can't meditate on something you don't know about. Right? So again, just can't say I love God. I have to know who He is, what He is like. So knowledge is the key ingredient that leads to love. Anything we have loved in our life, it came out of having some knowledge about it. So this absorption and love, from absorption, this love results. So the more we learn, the more we meditate upon, the more our consciousness will purify, and thus the more that love will be strengthened. Right? And as we understand how Krishna interacts with his devotees and how Krishna is always providing, we begin to realize how silly and futile our material attachments are. And we learn who is this real doer. Our false ego subsides. Our lust turns back into pure love. And all of this occurs based on this knowledge of the Supreme Lord. And so now the connection of devotional service. How to acquire this knowledge? It comes from devotional service. We see in Srimad Bhagavatam, by performance of bhakti, one acquires knowledge and detachment. So performing devotional service under the guidance of Guru is the key. It leads to this awakening of love. Right? In the Nectar devotion, we see this wonderful verse. Kriti Sadyat Bhavat Sadya Bhavasa Sarana Vidya Nitya Sadasya Bhavitam Prakritam Riddha Sadyate. That this love is lying dormant within all of us, and is by the performance of sadhana bhakti that it is awakened. So at the end of the purport, Srila Prabhupada talks about the 9 steps from faith to Krishna Prema. So in the interest of time, we'll keep moving, but you can study that again. How one moves from faith to sadhu sangha, to bhajana kriya, to anartha nivritti, nishta, ruchi, ashakti, bhava, and ultimately prema. So now, what happens if one does not want love for Krishna, but one wants something else? Krishna will explain in the 11th verse. Maybe they take shelter of Krishna to get something else. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pratap. So Krishna says, well, I reward one according to the degree of their surrender. So Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur gives a nice commentary on this verse, that as the devotees may learn about the nature and activities of Krishna, one may move towards love. But others may approach in a different way. So Krishna, how do you reciprocate with them? So Krishna says that I reciprocate according to what they want. If one is absorbed in Krishna to get money, they'll not get pure love of Godhead. They may get some money based on their performance of various prescribed duties, the karma kanda processes, but they'll not get love. So based on the type of surrender, the mood of surrender, there is a reciprocation. The jnanis who think of Krishna's birth as temporary, they'll get a temporary birth. Right? They'll not get this eternal relationship with Krishna. But if the devotees want to be with Krishna, then how does Krishna reciprocate? He agrees to take any type of service from us. If one wants to be in Santa Rasa, Dasya Rasa, Vatsaya Rasa, Madhurya Rasa, whatever rasa, whatever we want, Krishna reciprocates accordingly. He doesn't dictate, you serve me this way, you serve me that way. This is the love Krishna has for us. Right? He says, and Vishnu Thakur says that, what does he do? Krishna says, if one surrenders unto him, he says, I make that devotee my own parshadas, a perfect devotee. Krishna bestows the pure love upon his devotees in reciprocation to their desire. So, Krishna reciprocates with everyone, not just his devotees. His enemies don't want to know Krishna, so he keeps them very far away. His devotees want to know him, and he keeps them very close. So we have to be very careful. What is our desire in surrendering to Krishna? So all of us are surrendering to Krishna, either knowingly or unknowingly. Either we are surrendering to him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or we are surrendering to his material energy, which is non-different from him. So it is all based on knowledge. If I know about Krishna, certainly it'll lead one to surrender to him. Okay? So in the final verse, what happens? Why doesn't everyone then just surrender to Krishna? If I'm surrendering to Krishna in any way, why don't they all do it? So Krishna then explains this in the last and final verse we'll discuss today. Men in this world desire success and fruitive activities, and therefore they worship the demigods. Quickly, of course, men get results from fruitive work in the world. So Krishna says, because the demigods are providing immediate rewards, material results, they'll approach. But Prabhupada is speaking, and Krishna will speak later, that this is not very intelligent. Because the results the demigods give are limited and temporary. Only a less intelligent person will go to the doctor and say, can you temporarily cure me of this disease? So, but that is what the demigod worshippers are doing. They are approaching for some temporary boon. When you go to Krishna, even if you have material desires, what happens? Krishna may give it, but it takes some time. Because first he purifies us of this desire. And he gives the example, Prabhupada gives the example of Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj had the desire, but first he became purified. He became so purified, he became embarrassed by his desire. But then still Krishna gave him the opulence to rule. And then he achieved liberation, returning back home to God. Right? So the demigods are empowered parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But if one approaches them, they'll get quickly some temporary results. And thus some people will surrender to Krishna. And so now, next week, Krishna will continue to discuss the modes of nature and how we acquire these different desires for work, and continue discussing this topic of transcendental knowledge. So this is the first 12 verses of chapter 4. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, you said Krishna is Advaita and Achyuta. Can you please one more time just explain that Advaita part?
Yeah. So Advaita means one, right? So Dvaita means two, and Advaita means one. So Advaita refers to that his form, his body, and he himself are one. There is no distinction. We are Dvaita because our body is distinct from our soul, from who am I, in the conditioned state. But Krishna, he has no soul in per se in his body. He is all spiritual. So it refers to the oneness between his form and he himself. That is Advaita.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dharma Pranam. Very nice lecture, Prabhuji. Couple of questions. One is that you said the difference between him and us. One is that the one which Prabhuji mentioned, Advaita and Achyuta. Second is infallible. And what's the third difference between us and him?
Yeah, so he appears when he wants to whom he wants to, and where he wants to, right? The time, the place, and the circumstance to whom. We appear by the forces of material nature, right? So we acquire a certain birth, a body. We are born at a certain time and in a certain circumstance based on our past actions. We don't get to pick. But Krishna appears when he wants to, right? And once we are here, we become subject to the modes of material nature. And thus, we are pushed through different activities. But Krishna, he freely roams the material world according to his own desire. And thus his form also doesn't deteriorate. He's not subject to the function of time. Our form is subject to the function of time, and thus we age. But Krishna does not age. He decides, I'll show a little bit more mature, form of myself tomorrow to give more pleasure to Mother Yashoda. So he appears to age, right? We see, no, he went from 1 day old to 10 days old to 1 year old to 2 years old, and he started walking, and then he started going, now we have Gopashtami, he's grown to the point where he can hurt. It looks like he's aging. Well, he is, but he's aging by his own desire, not by the force of time. We age by the force of time. We don't get to pick. Right? So these are the distinctions between him and us.
Okay, thank you. And what about, when you say infallible, here does it mean that we are prone to committing mistakes and he is above that? Will that be a right way?
That is an aspect of infallible. He is perfect. We are imperfect. The specific reference here is he remembered everything and Arjuna did not. Right? So Prabhupada comments on this Achyuta aspect of Krishna remembered perfect memory of everything. But we forget. So that makes us fallible. But the broader understanding is yes, We tend to make mistakes. We are not perfect. Krishna is perfect.
Perfect, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Second is that confidential reasons. You said one is Krishna comes for the pleasure of his devotees. Second is for obviously to inspire all of us, so that we can kind of develop a kind of a deeper relationship, right? And any other reason?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. Okay. So under the broad context of the primary reason he comes is to give pleasure to his pure devotees. Okay? Yes, to deliver the pious or to annihilate the miscreants, anyone can do that. Even to reestablish dharma, he can send some, personalities to do that, like the Shaktivisha avatars. So those are external reasons. But the real confidential reason he comes is to enjoy with his devotees, to ease the anxiousness of the devotees who are in separation from him. They want to enjoy certain pastimes. So to give his devotees pleasure. That is the broad umbrella. Okay? Then there are like some subdivisions. One is that, only Krishna can give pure devotional service. So when, we see these other avatars, we don't see the presentation of pure bhakti. Right? And that is why Advaita Acharya, though Advaita Acharya was Mahavishnu, right? And Lord Shiva, he said, only you can give the power of bhakti to truly break these material attachments. So Krishna, when he comes, has the potency to give this pure bhakti, this love. And that is what Krishna is going to speak about in the 7th to 12th chapters, this Ananya Bhakti. The second is, Krishna comes directly under the same category to give his devotees pleasure, to fight with certain demons. Because those demons desired to be a demon to give Krishna pleasure. So Krishna wants to reciprocate their desire. You see how they're both trying to satisfy each other? And those are Jai and Vijay, who come as different, personalities, right? And again, kind of still related to the main umbrella, to give the, specific activities that maybe are not relishable in the spiritual world, like, to celebrate certain activities like Janmashtami, or, certain pastimes only take place in Vrindavan here, in the earthly planet, because of the specific circumstance. So the devotees, in the spiritual world, let us go see. We'll also come with you, Krishna, when you go for this purpose. Right? But in doing all those activities, for the conditioned souls, we get the opportunity to observe and see, what is this relationship with Krishna? What is so special about it? Why Goloka Vrindavan is such the topmost destination? What happens there? And we begin to read these pastimes and see the interactions and understand them. It will inspire us to come to devotional service. So that is a byproduct of that activity of Krishna coming to perform these pastimes. So that's why he comes.
wonderful, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. And it's making so very clear now. Yeah, because it was easy for me. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
And one more I had. I think I'll let others go. If I find another question, I'll come.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, here we see Krishna being supreme, that he has created this material world by think of his life. Yes, there is some religious faith in this, but if we go to some other section of it, like they say that Allah created this world, and other people say Jesus is the God. So are we mixing any religious things to this, or how to understand this thing?
Yeah, the Christians don't say Jesus created this world. They say that he says he is the Son of God. Right? So who is God? God is known by many names, but God is one. Right? There's one sun, but sun is known by many names. Sun, Sule, Surya, Sol, like that. But God is one. So there is no distinction when when Jesus says the Holy Father, he is speaking about the Supreme Lord, who we know to be Krishna. So there is no distinction. When we speak about in the Islamic faith, that is Allah is another name of God. So there's no distinction, and you see the teachings teach the same thing, but in different levels of detail. Why different levels of detail? Because the time, place, and circumstance required a different level of information. Just as when Lord Buddha came, if he tried to speak pure devotional service, people were so fallen, they could not get to that level. Just like if you try to explain a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old how food is digested in the stomach, and you start talking about enzymes and different salivic processes and bile and all these things, you'll confuse the person, the young child. So you speak in a way that's acceptable to them. But you won't speak in a way that's contradictory to the way a medical professor may speak to a medical student. It'll be in the same, but in more detail. So what Krishna is giving here is in more detail, but what is given in other bona fide, emphasizing the word bona fide, religions, is of the same context, just in a different degree of detail.
Okay, Prabhu.
Okay?
Yeah, Prabhu. Maybe attached to that question, is it the atheistic way of saying that this material world is explosion of some energy? Is it an atheist thinking?
Well, if you were to write some software code, okay? I don't remember if you're a software engineer or not, so forgive me. But just go with it. And your boss were to come and say, oh, the computer just created this code. How would that make you feel? Would that be a compliment to you? No, you would say, I did it. You're denying my doing. Again, I'm trying to use a mundane example. So to say that this earth is the creation of just some energy, then we are denying what Krishna has done. That is not very nice nor respectful. Because Krishna very graciously has fashioned this material world with so many facilities in a perfect arrangement that no human could do, so that we all could live in harmony. Yet we're going to say, no, Krishna didn't do it, just happened by nature? That's very rude. That's offensive. That's atheistic. Because we're denying that the Creator, the rightful claim to the creation. So of course, just as much as one would be offended if one who created something is not given credit for it, to say that this creation is the work of some energy is rude. Now, the atheists are not totally wrong. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it actually speaks about how the creation of the universe expands and grows through the different manifestations of the different energies. It actually speaks about that. And if you read it, it's very similar to this Big Bang. But there's a source behind that is Krishna, that is known to be Karanadaksha Vishnu, who is glancing over the matter to instigate the creation of the planet, of the world. Right? So there is that supreme cause. But to deny that supreme cause is atheistic, inasmuch as if I, come and say, oh, you didn't create that, it just happened by the computer, you would say, no, that is not fair. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Prabhu. Okay. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you. Nice question. Yes, question online?
So we have some questions online. Virmani Prabhu has asked, how can we please Krishna?
How can we please Krishna? Well, thankfully Krishna gives us the simple formula. Manmana bhava madbhakto majnimam namaskuru. Do these 4 things. Think of him, become his devotee, offer your homages to him, offer your obeisances to him. And of course there's more detail beyond that. But Krishna says, very simply, chant my holy names and serve my devotees. That is the means to please Krishna. So by the practice of devotional service, one has the opportunity to please Krishna.
Also, but some people dream about their past lives. You had referenced past lives in your lecture. So, but what about that? If some people dream about their past lives?
Yeah, because this dreams of our past lives, because remember, the mind that we have is being carried forward body to body to body. So this mind is the same mind we had in our prior lives. So there will be, momentary, again, it's in the dream state when we dream of these kind of things. Prabhupada talks about how that is a flashback to some prior. So it's not as though one cannot remember, but Krishna allows us to forget. Matashmitir jnanam apohanam cha. Apohanam. He'll tell us in the 15th chapter. This forgetfulness he enables in order for us to live a certain desired way. So, but it doesn't. If we force it upon us, we cannot, remember everything. It is only when Krishna allows us to remember, and thus that is why we are very distinct. Whereas Krishna has complete remembrance, we have very partial, fragmental remembrance. So that's the difference.
Also, will Krishna Bhagwan appear in Satyuga, which people say will come after Kali Yuga?
Yes. So Krishna is called Triyuga, which means he appears in 3 yugas, as in a pronounced form, and in the 4th in a covered form. And we know we have the different avatars. So yes, there are yuga avatars. That is one of the 6 categories of avatars. So in every yuga he appears in different forms. So he has a red form, a white form, a blackish form, and a yellow form. Garga Muni in the naming ceremony of Krishna explains this, we see this in the 10th canto. And then the Navyo Yandras in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, specifically the 5th chapter, discuss these, yuga avatars. So yes, he appears in also Satyuga.
Does our soul deteriorate?
The soul does not deteriorate. The soul is eternal. Because Krishna does not deteriorate, and the soul is part and parcel of Krishna, by definition then, the soul does not deteriorate. Just as if you take a drop of ocean water from the ocean, that drop will also have some salt in it, because it's coming from the ocean, which is full of salt. So similarly, the properties of Krishna reside in the properties of the soul, because they are part and parcel. So though the quantity is very small, the nature is the same. So the soul is indestructible, and that's what Krishna spoke in the 12th through 20th verses, 12th through 30th verses of the 2nd chapter. It cannot be withered by wind, it cannot be burned by fire. It is unchangeable, ultimately, he
Soul
says.
is indestructible.
So, okay.
Is it true that we rebirth till we get detached from this materialistic world?
That is absolutely true. We will continue to take births until we have a desire not to. As soon as we desire not to take birth again, and to eternally serve Krishna, ye tamam prapadyante tam staiva bhajamyaham. Krishna just said, I reward according to your degree of surrender. If you don't want to take birth again, you don't have to take birth again. You have to have that desire. So Krishna rewards according to your desire. So absolutely. And that's why he says in the 8th chapter, antakale smanameva, that if you think of me at the time of death, you'll attain me. But yam yam vapi smanam bhavam chantate kalevaram. Whatever you think, that you'll achieve. So Krishna will give this more specific discussion in chapter 8.
Sulekha Mataji asked, why did God make humans or any creatures at all? What if there is no life, no death for anyone in the whole universe? Why go through all this? Why he wanted to create us and go through this life, then karmas and death? Why this life cycle?
Well, it's a great question. Wonderful question. Why this life cycle? Well, Krishna created this material world because we wanted to try to enjoy separate from Krishna. In the spiritual world, there is no life cycle. There is no death. There is no old age. There is no disease. It is Vaikuntha, free of all miseries. So why then Krishna would create this place which is full of miseries, Kunta or Dukhalayam? Because we asked him to. We asked him that we want to try to enjoy separate from you. So Krishna was forced to create this world. And based on our various desires, he then created so many different life forms because we want to enjoy in so many different ways. So he creates so many different types of species of life. So this material world is a function of only our desire. And if we desire not to be here anymore, that also can happen in an instant. And that's why he says, Daivi Hesha Guna Mai Mama Maya Diratraya. How can one overcome this Daivi Hesha, this divine energy of Maya? Maameva ye prapadyante. By surrendering unto him. Then, Mayamitam tarantite. At once, one can transcend. It doesn't take long. So it's based on our desire. So that's why. Okay? Any other questions? Any other questions here on Zoom?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Prabhu, because I think some self-realization thing came in this chapter, right? Like in this transcendental knowledge. So self-realization is only about knowing Krishna and doing service to Krishna, or is there anything, is there any other connotation to that?
So, taking a material example, when you pull out your driver's license from your wallet, are there multiple identities on that driver's license? Or is there one?
Only one.
There's only one?
Yep.
Does that make the government unfair or imperfect because they only gave you one name? You only have one name? You only have one birthday? You only have one height, weight? Yeah. You have one identity, materially speaking. Right? So when the police officer says, identify yourself, that's how you identify. This is who I am. So when I say, when Krishna says self-realize, what else can we know but who we are? We only have one identity. And that is, I am part and parcel of Krishna. And my job title is not software engineer. My job title is eternal servant of Krishna. There is no other aspect of the self. I am nothing else but part and parcel of Krishna, and my job title, servant of Krishna. So when we speak about self-realization, there cannot be multiple aspects of self, because I only have one. I may have multiple forms of IDs to present who I am, passport, driver's license, but I only have one identity. So when we say realize the self, to know who I am, there is no existence separate from Krishna. So absolutely, unequivocally, there's only one self-realization. It is not an option. That's just a fact. Now I can choose to accept that fact or not. That is my free will. I can choose to say, no, I am not part and parcel of Krishna. You have the right to say that. Just like I can choose to say, I am Abraham Lincoln. I can choose to say that. But am I Abraham Lincoln? No. But I have the free will to say that. It makes me a fool, but I can say that. So there's only one self-realization. Because I only have one identity. Thankfully, I'm not a schizophrenic.
So that means self-realization is only about the identity, but not like, because there are some other things like feel yourself in what you do, everything in your lifestyle, right? Like say being eating some food, like so you feel that food quality, like everything you do in your lifestyle, you should feel yourself the real energy of it. So that's something out of it, like or it's also included because it's a lifestyle included along with Krishna consciousness. That's how we should feel.
What is the self? When you say feel yourself while eating your foods, what is the self? The self is spirit soul. What is the spirit soul? It's not just identity, it's understanding the function. My identity is servant of Krishna. So yes, when I eat my foods, I should understand I'm servant of Krishna. So I should be eating and honoring Krishna Prasadam. On days like today, I should be honoring non-grain Prasadam. Why? Because I'm servant of Krishna. So yes, in every aspect of our life, we should acknowledge and understand who I am as servant of Krishna. Every step I take. But this ambiguous, mental speculated idea of, see the self in all that you do, what is that? That has no context. There's no, and again, that knowledge has to come in parampara, from disciplic succession. So again, anyone has the right to theorize about whatever they want. And Krishna will talk about that in the last section of Bhagavad Gita. People make up their own gods. This person's God. What do we do with movie stars and great athletes? Krishna calls that. It's the mode of passion and ignorance. We worship different ghosts and spirits in the mode of ignorance. In the mode of passion, we worship various things. You have the right to do all that. Doesn't make it correct. There's only one Supreme Lord. And that's why Krishna says, Sarva Dharmam Prityajam Mamekam. Only me. That's a fact. Now it's up to us whether we want to acknowledge that fact or not. Everything else is speculation. That's why this transcendental knowledge, it has to come from Krishna. Whatever else anyone else says, unless it's coming in parampara, is useless. A waste of time. Nonsense. I hate to speak so black and white, but it's just a reality. Because we are fallible. So how do I know whether it's right or wrong? But if I go to the infallible source, I don't have to worry. It's perfect. Take it as it is. Then you'll find real bliss and happiness. Right? So that's look, there are no shortage of ideas out there. There's shortage of truth. The absolute truth. Okay?
Sure, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare
Yeah.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, last question.
Yes?
Why some do not surrender to Krishna? That is only one reason I think I got, that is the desire for the fruitive results, and we want immediate results, so therefore one goes there and we know the consequence of that. But is there any other reason apart from that we do not surrender to Krishna?
Yeah. There'll be envy of Krishna. There'll be many other reasons Krishna will discuss. He'll talk about the 4 types of miscreants later. And then he'll talk about the 4 types who surrender to him for other motives. So yeah, there are other types, but this is the initial discussion he's having. So
For now, we need to know this much.
Yeah.
That's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
Online for Virmani Prabhu, how to become free from anger?
How to become free from anger? Good question. So we have to know where anger comes from, right? So what is the source of anger? Then you can become free from it. If there is, some, problem in the house, the power outlet's not working, you have to figure out, well, what's the source of the problem and solve it. When you solve the source, then you'll solve the issue. So what's the source of our anger? It is our material attachments. Krishna says in the 2nd chapter, from lust, one becomes angry. This wrath. Why? Because the more we try to enjoy our material senses, the more we become frustrated. And that frustration leads to anger. So how to overcome anger? We have to stop our material sense enjoyment. Because the more we try to enjoy our senses, the more we'll become frustrated. So how to stop our material sense enjoyment? Well, one way is just to stop. But that's no fun. Who wants to just stop seeing nice things, eating nice things, hearing nice things? So instead, Krishna says, elevate your taste. Begin to practice devotional service. By increasing our devotional service, we will automatically decrease our material sense enjoyment. And by decreasing our material sense enjoyment, our anger will automatically subside. All good qualities manifest from the practice of devotional service. How to become less angry? More chanting. How to become more humble? More chanting. How to become less envious? More chanting. How to become less whatever or more whatever? The answer is always the same. More chanting. Because the practice of devotional service is what purifies the heart of all of these anarthas that impede and obscure our pure love for Krishna. So, that is the multifaceted power of this holy names of the Lord. All Nijya Sharva Shaktis, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, all my Shakti, all the energies are manifested within the holy names. If you say Sarva, all, then what is not possible from chanting the holy names? By definition, everything is within the holy names. So everything that we aspire to achieve, it comes from one place. And that's the greatest thing. Krishna's made it so easy for us. We don't need to be so intelligent. Oh, for this problem I have to go here, for this problem I have to go here, for this problem. No. One place we go, our bead bag. It's the all-in-one. Any other questions or comments?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
And Pranam. I have some questions.
Yes, sir.
Is Supreme Lord Krishna is restricted to the Shastra, or the Shastras are a spark of glories of Lord?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you maybe rephrase it or ask it again?
Yeah, Prabhuji. Like now we know the avatars of Lord Krishna, right? Krishna will be coming at this time of Satyayuga, and again he will start. Out of Shastra we will not accept it, right? Out of Shastra, whatever it comes, we will not accept it. But is Supreme Lord restricted to the Shastra like that, or he's independent? He can come whenever he wants.
Yeah, Prabhupada makes that exact comment in, I think, the 6th verse purport, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember one of the purports. He says, Krishna comes on the scheduled incarnation, scheduled time, 28th Manvantara, the 7th Manu, but he can come whenever he wants.
Okay.
So, yes, he is not restricted. Remember, he is the source of Shastra. It is not that Shastra is written and he has to abide by it. It's, he writes what he's planning to do, because he knows past, present, and future. So he knows he can write, just like I can say, tomorrow I'm going to go to the grocery store. Now, I'm not forced to go to the grocery store because I wrote it, but I knew I wanted to go. So I am not living in accordance to that note, I'm going to the grocery store, but I wrote it so Krishna knows that I'm going to appear here, I'm going to appear there, I'm going to appear this time. These are all the times I'm going to appear. But because he knows perfectly when things will degrade, when the time will be needed, when this will happen. So he is documented. But he is not beholden to that. He could change his mind if he wanted to. But he never has to, because he has perfect knowledge. We change our mind because, I thought I wanted this, but now I want that. Why? Because we're imperfect. So, just because it's written in Shastra doesn't mean he is beholden to that. He has made the comment. He knows, okay, I'll appear here. Nothing can define him. Just like avatars, when we say in Srimad Bhagavatam we have the list of avatars. We don't have the list of avatars. We have a sampling of them. Did that answer the question, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay.
So both are right. Okay. Prabhuji, I have another few questions, like where we get the detail of Goloka Vrindavan, the spiritual world.
10th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam.
Oh, it explains complete. Is it explaining about the Vrindavan manifested in the material world or the spiritual world?
There is no difference.
Okay.
Yeah. So the where that Vrindavan in the material world comes from, it descends from Goloka Vrindavan. Right. So there's no difference in the potency. There are certain activities that may be different, but the broad context. And if you want to read about the journey to Goloka Vrindavan, you read Sanatana Goswami's Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which is an exquisite narration of the jiva's journey through the different higher planetary systems, piercing the spiritual sky into the different Vaikuntha Loka planets, ultimately up to Krishna Loka. And that whole process and journey is described in, kind of commenting on two different narrations, but that's that there you can get, many details about that aspect and why Gopkumar is inspired to continue going forward and forward ultimately until he reaches Goloka Vrindavan. So, and then many descriptions are given there. But for our, understanding too, that what we see, observe in the pastimes from 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam are very indicative of Goloka Vrindavan.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
I have another question. The 4.9 one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities. Here, what does it mean by knowing, Prabhuji? Is it philosophically? Is it Tattvajnana or knowing as a story? What is the depth of the meaning of this knowing here, Prabhuji?
That's a
Or
nice.
is it a realization? Or also the next verse, is it linked with the 4.9, Prabhuji? How is that true?
That's a very important question you're asking. So knowing, there's Gyan and Vigyan. Vigyan is realized knowledge. What does realized knowledge mean? The knowledge leads to action. So I may know going to the gym is good for me. But do I go? When I go, that's Vigyan, meaning the knowledge transforms the activities of the person. I may know not slitting the throat of an animal is good for me, but do I do it or not? So knowledge is just not acquiring the information, but it's acting in accordance with that. Then it's realized knowledge, Vigyan. So one should understand that, okay, if Krishna's appearance is as such and mine is not, it should lead one to surrender to Krishna. If one understands that Krishna's activities are so sweet and he's reciprocating with his devotees in so many amazing ways, then one should surrender to Krishna. So the measure of knowing if I realize this knowledge is the degree of my surrender. Just as the measure of my knowledge of how good the gym is for me is based on how much I go. I can say I know, but if I don't go, then I really don't. Right? So that knowledge is a very important question, because unless it translates into consciousness and activity, it's not really realized. Just as we know, theoretically, I'm not this body, I'm spirit soul.
Yeah.
But how many of my activities are in that realization? And this coronavirus is an extraordinary opportunity for us to measure and evaluate our realization. I'm not this body. Stark. That okay?
Thank you, Prabhuji. I have one more question.
Yeah.
Prabhuji, you said only Krishna can give pure devotional service, not the other form of avatars. Right? True. But then what is that was lacking in the other form? Like we have seen the example of Hanumanji in Ramavatar, Shabari, and also Prahalad Maharaj. We take the verse from Bhagavatam, Navavida Bhakti from Prahalad Maharaj, where Prahalad Maharaj was meditating on Vishnu, and we see Nrsimhadev as Krishna himself. We see like that. But in this statement, what is that lacking of purity that the other pure devotees they have got? How is that, Prabhuji?
We shouldn't look at it as what is lacking. We should look at it as what is added. There's a big difference. So remember, Krishna is the only present in Goloka Vrindavan, right? So in because Krishna, remember, there is no difference between, let's pick just two examples, Rama and Krishna. They're one person, right? They're both candles lit with equal potency, equal power. That's why the word is used, plenary expansion. Plenary means complete and full. but the activity shown is a subset, a portion of that potency. So the full potency is not revealed in that specific avatar. But the ability is complete. So if one thinks that, Lord Ramchandra is incomplete, that is an offensive mentality. Because that is Krishna, but showing a partial manifestation of the total for a particular purpose, right? A particular purpose. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes, his particular purpose is to reveal the process of pure devotional service in Goloka Vrindavan, in the mood of Madhurya Rasa. And our acharyas comment about, the different moods of devotional service and what is added to it to intensify the pleasure for Krishna. But at the same time, based on one's desires, in the realm of pure devotional service, one has absolute and complete satisfaction. So there's nothing missing. And that concept is a little bit difficult for us to comprehend with our material conditioning, because we think in terms of, binary fixed outcomes. So, think about it in the context of additional, not what is missing. Is how I can describe that. But and one other comment I'll make is, pure devotional service is experienced in the entire spiritual world. In the Vaikuntha Lokas, there's also pure devotional service. But it's of a different nature than the pure devotional service in Goloka Vrindavan. One has awe and reverence and one does not. And the basis of that awe and reverence has a different experience for Krishna. Krishna enjoys, he says, without awe and reverence, more. That's his opinion, not someone else's opinion. That's Krishna's opinion. I don't know if I'm answering the question or addressing the point.
This is completely spiritual. It cannot be understood by my material mind. And also, I think it is not good to think much about this, just do sadhana, because this is completely spiritual. In my mentality, I can think only black and white, plus or minus, binary, as you said. Yeah.
It's a difficult for us to comprehend. And that's, if you really want to get to this topic, you read Brihad Bhagavatamrita.
Okay, Prabhu.
If you read Brihad Bhagavatamrita, you'll understand this simultaneously, everything is on the absolute plane, because they're all perfect, yet there is a hierarchy of service. So how that can both be true? They're all perfect, they're all absolute, yet one rasa is higher than another. And it's explained in the purports very eloquently how, from the individual's perspective, they see everything, what they have is perfect and complete. Nothing is lacking. And that's why it's eternal. It can only be eternal if one is fully satisfied. Otherwise one won't. But from the external objective of perspective, there is a hierarchy. And how those exist together takes a real, methodical explanation and understanding. One, it's not so important, as you said, chant nicely and it will be perfect. But if we want to, as you read Brihad Bhagavatamrita, it's a nice way to kind of have this illustrated in a story form. That'll make it very. In addition to that, it is the sweetest of sweet. It is so nectarian. Scripture is so wonderful to hear and to understand the different aspects of the spiritual world, and yeah, I can go on for hours. It's so sweet. So, but my wife is looking at me, suggesting we should end soon. So.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. Thank you very much. Sorry for holding you too long.
No,
but, very detailed.
I am enjoying. Thank you for tolerating me. Any other questions or comments? Let's go. Okay. So if not, we'll continue next week in chapter 4. Thank you again. Please forgive me if I missed